Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, an unknown number of people are killed in Ghana in a huge explosion that razes hundreds of buildings to the ground. The blast was caused by a truck carrying explosives colliding with a motorcycle in the country's west. Also, at least 29 people in Liberia, including several children and a pregnant woman, die in a stampede at a Christian ceremony in the capital. And the big upset of the day in Ivory Coast sees Ivory Coast post past the defending champions Algeria, sending them humiliatingly crashing out of the tournament with a decisive 3-1 victory. We hear from our team in Cameroon. But first, several people were killed in Western Ghana on Thursday in a huge blast caused by a truck carrying explosives colliding with a motorcycle. Hundreds of buildings were razed to the ground, but the exact number of deaths still hasn't yet been established. It happened around midday in Apiete. Nathan Kwao tells us more.
The authorities are still trying to piece the pictures together because several accounts and several people are saying different things. But the numbers are huge. We are looking at about hundreds and hundreds of people who have possibly died from this. The official numbers, initially when it started, some people said it was around 15. But if you speak to health authorities on the ground and you speak to people on the ground, the numbers are huge. They're in the hundreds. We still don't have a precise number as to how many people may have passed on. Now, in relation to what exactly happened, just like you said, a truck carrying explosive, it was ammonium nitrate to be precise. It was moving from one point to the other. It was actually transporting the explosive to the mine or to a mine, and then the explosion happened. It collided with a motorcycle. Now, according to eyewitness accounts, the driver noticed that the explosion or the crash had caused or had generated some flame or some fire underneath or beneath the truck. Because he knew the truck was carrying explosives, he proceeded to run away from the truck, ward people off and tell people to stay away. And then about an hour or so later, the explosion happened, and the images we are seeing started to emerge after the explosion.
So how is the rescue effort going as far as you know? As you referred to the images, the scale of the impact seems to have been really quite phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. We've not heard of anything like this ever, really. In my own life. In terms of the rescue efforts, what I do know is the police has cordoned off the area. Initially, when it happened, local authorities tried to get excavators from surrounding towns and villages to help, go through the rubble and see what they could find. But as things stand, the place has been cordoned off. The president has spoken. He's already directed the National Disaster Management Organization to get itself ready and go there. But what I do know is that, like I said, the place is cordoned off. Rescue efforts you are not too sure what exactly is happening, but it will take a huge effort to dig through the rubble and get people who are possibly buried under the houses and all the other things that may have come down due to the explosion.
Nathan Carver in Ghana. Well, 3 days of mourning have been scheduled in Liberia over the deaths of 29 people in a stampede at a Christian ceremony in Monrovia. The fatal crush began when an armed gang blocked off exits and started targeting worshippers. At least 11 children and a pregnant woman were amongst the victims. Shirley Sitbin with more.
Hundreds of worshippers gathered in this field in the north of Monrovia for 2 days of prayer. On Wednesday night, they were attacked by a gang who blocked all exits and demanded they hand their belongings. People panicked, started running. Dozens were killed in the stampede that followed the attack, including young children. President George Weah visited the wounded in the nearby Redemption Hospital.
A very sad day in our country. Tragedy. We want to express our sympathy to all of the families that lost.
President Weah urged investigators to be thorough and quick to find those responsible. One person has been arrested.
What caused the police to start running was the men who were at the entrance. Yeah, they were attacking the people who were getting out from the service.
The problem of street gangs has reportedly worsened in recent years. This time their target was one of the prayer sessions organized daily. Many Liberians live in extreme poverty in a country which has yet to recover from years of war. Those religious gatherings, called crusades, are meant to bring them hope.
Well, 15 new ministers have been appointed to Sudan's transitional government. The appointments by Military Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan came after the ruling council met with a US diplomatic delegation and agreed to form a technocratic cabinet and start a national dialogue over a way out of the violent political crisis. At least 72 protesters have been killed since the beginning of demonstrations over the military's takeover of the country in October. On Thursday, dozens of judges issued a rare letter condemning military leaders' violent tactics. The head of a judiciary later vowed on behalf of all the country's judges to do all they can to protect citizens' lives and constitutional rights. Meanwhile, Namibia's High Court has ruled against the recognition of same-sex marriages. Two gay couples had been fighting against a ban on their weddings. One had been married in South Africa and another in Germany. Both couples now live in Namibia and faced applications for a work permit and residency being denied because of the same-sex marital status. They'd argue that the word spouse should be expanded to include same-sex couples or declared unconstitutional. The judge said that she agreed, but was bound by a Supreme Court ruling preventing recognition of same-sex relationships. The couples say that they're disappointed, but are still hoping to see change.
Disappointed, but it was either we win or we don't. I think I had space in my head for that. It's sad.
So it was our choice to get married because that's what we felt. We had the right to get married, and just like normal people who have rights to do things choose to do those things, we did that. So I think it's very important that they do recognize same-sex marriage, not for us, for their very citizens, for the Namibians who are gay.
An outbreak of bird flu in Burkina Faso has led to the culling of almost 500,000 chickens and the destruction of 1.3 million eggs since the end of December. It's a huge blow to the poultry industries, which represent about 6% of the country's GDP, as our team reports.
Bibata arrives at work at 6 a.m. every day. Before she heads to university, the economics student starts her day at her poultry farm. She started the Passion Project in 2019 and now has around 500 chickens. But since avian flu struck the country's poultry industry, customers have been staying away. Bibata is worried.
So far there have been no deaths in my chicken coop. Before I could sell 40 chickens a week, but since the announcement I can't even sell 2 chickens a week. It's impossible. I'm worried because I have chickens that I have to sell. I have to sell them. I'm here feeding them and I'm losing money. It's a loss for me.
Morris sells grilled chicken. He's also noticed an unusual lull in customers since the beginning of the year.
At our level in Ouagadougou, we have not seen any poultry contaminated by bird flu. But since the minister spoke of the outbreak of the disease, we no longer make any revenue. But in my farm in the countryside, more than 1,000 chickens have died since December.
The government has said it will do its best to help traders.
For bird flu to kill a person, they would have to live for a long time with sick birds. For those who have lost their jobs, the state will find ways to be able to either alleviate their loans or improve the mechanisms of importing raw materials to be able to raise their poultry.
Welcome support for a country where chicken is big business. In 2021, the Burkinabe authorities announced plans to launch a label for its local free-range chicken breed known as bicycle chicken to increase its added value and compete against imported poultry.
Now, the last of the showdowns at the Africa Cup of Nations on Thursday saw Gambia substitute Abli Jallow score a winning goal deep into stoppage time to wrest a shock 11th hour 1-0 win over Tunisia. Nevertheless, the Eagles do advance, as do Gambia, who had already sealed their place in the knockout phase. They'll be facing Guinea in Bafoussam on Monday. In the other of Thursday's earlier games, the Eagles of Mali beat Mauritania 2-0 in Douala, finishing top of Group F. They'll be heading to Limbe on Wednesday to meet Equatorial Guinea, who've beaten Sierra Leone 1-0. But the big upset of Thursday saw Ivory Coast past the defending champions Algeria to send them crashing out of the tournament with a bruising 3-1 loss. Simon Harding tells us more.
It is a cataclysmic end to Algeria's campaign here in the Africa Cup of Nations. The defending champions dumped out of the competition, humiliated by Ivory Coast 3-1 in a match that Jamel Belmadi and the Desert Foxes simply had to win in order to qualify. Ivory Coast took the lead through Frank Kessié and then thanked Sangare, who doubled up with a header before half-time, as Algeria showed many of the faults that have plagued them during this group stage here in Cameroon. Too slow in the build-up, not taking their chances. Benasser hit the post and Jamel Belmadi opted for an incomprehensible 4-2-4 formation, which, yes, did give Algeria, in theory, plenty of attacking options, but they were consistently beaten in midfield, and the Ivory Coast exploited and opened up the Fennecs easily on the counter-attack. After half-time, Jamel Belmadi already recognising mistakes were made. Saïd Benrahma off, but nothing changed. Nicolas Pepe, Arsenal's right winger, cutting inside on his left foot and finishing with a trademark curler in the opposite corner. Riyad Mahrez, to embody this failed campaign, even missed a penalty for Algeria before the Ivory Coast finally were beaten a goal which made the score 3-1. Sebastian Haller had a header ruled out in extra time, but the defeat a complete one for the Fennecs, who will be heading home after a very disappointing campaign where they scored just one goal, drew one and lost two. Elsewhere, Equatorial Guinea beat Sierra Leone to ensure that they qualify for the next round. And after this result, it is going to be Ivory Coast against Egypt in the last 16.
Simon Harding there for us in the thick of things. Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Like they say, repatriate? How are they going to repatriate you to some country that you've never even lived in?
Every year, the United States forcibly returns more than 100,000 Mexicans to their country of origin. Yet many of them have grown up or built their lives in the United States.
Todo lo que había construido, todo lo que había tenido, se fue de un día para otro.
With all legal recourse exhausted, deportations across the border are destroying families and careers.
Esa línea me impide abrazar a mi esposa. Puta línea.
Watch Reporters Plus on the line on France 24 and France24.com. 1 year ago, Storm Alex devastated 13 villages along the Roya Valley in France's Alpes-Maritimes département, destroying families as it went.
D'un coup, j'ai entendu tout craquer et je t'ai vu tout partir là. Lui, les brebis, enfin, on dirait rien. Il n'y a plus rien à dire.
Following the losses, disappearances and trauma of the disaster, the Col de Tenda region is now a shadow of its former self.
Vous avez un village, excusez-moi l'expression, il est mort.
An investigation into what remains of Roya in Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.